Hello and welcome to another history special. And in this video I'm going to take a walk around what remains of Fotheringhay Castle, one of England's forgotten castles, and one which played an important role in British history. It's also a castle that no longer exists, except for the outline and the earthworks of the mighty castle that was once here. The castle was founded around 1100 AD by a man called Simon de Senliz. He was the Earl of Northampton and Huntingdon, and Senliz chose the site carefully to control an important river crossing over the River Nene. The castle was a typical modern bailey design, with a conical round mound protected by a bank and ditches and topped by a timber keep. You can still see the outline of the ditches and the moat today, and what remains of the mound. The site would have been approached through a wide enclosure, or the bailey, which you can see just in front of me, wide open space, where secondary buildings like a church and stables and a great hall once stood. Now, when Senliz died, his widow Margaret married King David of Scotland, and Fotheringhay passed to the Scottish crown. The castle was besieged and captured in the year 1221 by William de Fortibus, the Earl of Albemarle. The castle was forfeited to the English crown in around the year 1294, and around the year 1400 the castle was described as containing a stone keep, 2 chapels, a great hall, kitchens and a number of outbuildings. The site was defended by a moat and a drawbridge leading to a great gatehouse. But by 1377 the castle was in a poor state and was granted to Edmund Langley, son of Edward III, who repaired the keep and transformed it from a military stronghold into a comfortable palace. Just walk down through where the entrance to the former castle would have been. This would have been the gatehouse. You can see the moat on both sides, and a bit of drawbridge here to let people in and out, of course. And a great stone gatehouse which you see on other castles. And all that today has gone. It's just an empty field here. So many ruined castles throughout the country do contain remnants of former walls and other buildings, but there's absolutely nothing here. And that's probably to do with the castle's later history. But let's climb up the mound and take a look at the area from the top. As I walk up the top of the steps onto the mound, it's a little windy up here, but as I turn around you can see where I came in. See the modern day farmer's shed and the track leading down in between across the moat, I should say, between 2 parts of the moat. It's where the gatehouse would have been. You can follow the line of the moat around the outer bailey, and you can see what's now a field below, where all the other outbuildings would have been, all bordering down onto the River Nene. Look across the countryside. You can see for miles. It's very flat up here, and you can see why the castle would have been built here. All marshland around, very flat, and a single road bridge crossing the River Nene. But there's nothing much up here. And this was a castle. There'd been a stone keep here. There would have been a central hall here with a fire for the royalty, the owners of the castle, and probably some upper chambers as well. but there's nothing here today. And it's a shame to see a castle in this condition. So many other Motte and Bailey castles around the country, Pickering and Berkhamsted come to mind. They've still got fragments of stonework, and they're very exciting castles to visit. But it's the later history connected with this castle which has put it into this position today of being stripped of its stone. The castle has royal connections. Richard III was born here on the 2nd of October 1452, but he only lived here for about 6 years until he was moved to the safety of Ludlow Castle in Shropshire. What a fantastic castle that is as well. I remember visiting there last year. Absolutely beautiful castle. Richard III, of course, lost his life at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485 and was found in 2012 under a car park in Leicester. He's now been given a royal burial in Leicester Cathedral. But it's the events from around that time that led to the castle's decay. Now, Henry VIII then granted Fotheringhay to Catherine of Aragon. Catherine lavished money on the castle and rebuilt it in its former glory. It must have looked quite splendid if the artist's impressions are anything to go by. Unfortunately, her tenure as queen did not last, and Henry granted the castle in turn to each of his subsequent wives. It was used as a prison, and as that role it saw its most famous resident and famous moment in British history, and that was the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots. In 1586, Mary, Queen of Scots, was brought to Fotheringhay to stand trial for treason. She was implicated in a plot to overthrow the Protestant Queen Elizabeth I from the throne of Britain, throne of England, and replace herself as the Catholic Queen. All the other conspirators were rounded up and executed. And it was to Fotheringhay that Mary was brought. But why Fotheringhay? Well, probably because the castle was set in a marshy landscape where access was difficult, especially during the winter months. The land around here really is very flat, especially if you go down towards the village. Very flat indeed. So it was felt that by the authorities that the unfortunate Scottish Queen would be more secure at Fotheringhay than somewhere else, and that the location would discourage any rash attempt to free her by force. Mary was tried at the castle on the 14th and the 15th of October 1586, and rather presumably on the 25th of October she was found guilty. The sentence for treason was beheading. But she wasn't executed immediately. Elizabeth I was reluctant to sign her death warrant because she was related. They were cousins. But finally, on the 8th of February 1587, here in the Great Hall, Mary, Queen of Scots, lost her head on the spot where I'm now standing. This was the location of that great hall here at Fotheringhay, just at the bottom of the bailey here by the wall and the moat. And according to reports from the execution, she died on the second stroke of the axe. Not a very pleasant way for anybody to die, and you can imagine the lady's bravery, knowing her fate for several months, living in the castle, and then walking calmly into the Great Hall to meet her end. On the morning of her execution, she dressed carefully in black, with a scarlet bodice and petticoat, the colours carefully chosen because they represented martyrdom. Following her execution, her body was left on view at Fotheringhay until July, when it was carried to Peterborough Cathedral for burial. And she was buried initially on the other side of the chancel to that of Queen Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's third wife. But when James's son took the throne as James I of England, James VI of Scotland, he had his mother's body transferred to Westminster Abbey and buried in Henry II's chapel in a tomb slightly larger than that of Elizabeth I's. Just behind me you can see the crossing on the River Nene that the castle was built to protect. It's quite a pleasant walk down here by the river, and just behind me you can see the mound where the great stone keep once stood. But following Mary's execution, what happened to the castle? Well, the execution was probably the last event, and the castle may well have been abandoned in a year or so afterwards. The castle was allowed to completely decay. It was eventually sold, and local people began to rob the site for building stone. And by 1628, the castle had been completely dismantled. The Great Hall was purchased by Sir Richard Cotton, who had the interior stripped and the furnishings transferred to Coddington in Huntingdonshire. Tradition probably inaccurately suggests that James VI of Scotland, Mary's son, ordered the castle destroyed after he took the throne of England as James I. More plausible explanation, probably it was just falling apart anyway and had come to the end of its natural life as a castle. So many castles around that time did fall into disrepair because they simply weren't being used. The flavour was a more fortified manor house, which is a lot easier to maintain and manage. But the castle today is just a shell, if that, of its former glory. A lot of the stone was used locally to build the local farms and some of the houses, but it's all taken away for other building projects in the area. But one piece does survive, and I suppose we're lucky to have one piece that has survived. This is a piece that had fallen off of the keep. Was this part of Mary's lodgings? Was it just part of the keep structure? You can see there's a put-log hole on one of the sides, which had been used to build the castle. Scaffolding poles would have been put in there so that men could have worked building the outside of the castle. And this piece is fenced off, but there are 3 plaques on the fencing here. King Richard III, youngest son of Richard Duke of York and Cecilia Neville, was born in this castle October 2nd, 1452. And one in memory of Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots. The memorial was placed here by the Stuart History Society in 1964. And someone's placed some Scottish heather onto the railings as well. Probably done a few weeks ago on the anniversary of her martyrdom. And the main plaque for Fotheringhay Castle, the masonry from this castle keep, was set up and protected by the Peterborough Archaeological Society by permission of Lady Wantage back in 1913. I suppose if you're doing a quiz and the pictures come up of castles, Fotheringhay is instantly recognisable by this solitary piece of masonry. It's not the best day to visit a castle, but it's very, very peaceful here. you just imagine looking up at the keep and the walls where they would have been and the buildings contained within, just what this castle might have been like back in the Tudor period, after it had been rebuilt by Catherine of Aragon. It was naturally the castle would decline, but it's nice walking around here, and I think it's one of these castles you have to come to visit and enjoy what was once here. But this is where I'm going to end the video. I hope you've enjoyed walking around with me, and on the course of my travels I visit numerous other castles around Europe, many of which are fully intact, like Rimini Castle and Fort Saint-André in France, in Provence, d'Avignon to be precise. And the Tower of London, one of the most famous castles in the world, which has a connection also to King Henry VIII and the execution of Anne Boleyn. Thanks for watching.